I tried to make a really old joke in it. I don't think you guys got it.
I think they want to get it.
I don't know who I need it recorded. Another Time Warner. ABC owns Disney owns ABC, and Time Warner owns Fox.
They just bought Fox. Yeah, they didn't.
Did they just buy Fox?
Yeah, they just. I think it's just Marvel.
This is based off an old table.
Yeah. Friends.
Oh, this was my subjective question. This is the one I wanted to throw in. Oh God.
What?
Yeah, because you have to think about it's the whole world simultaneously. I didn't say like just in America. That's the most watched because every single country, every single nation is going to tune in to watch how their country does. So that's where advertisers put a lot of ads in. You know, people think it would be Super Bowl because there's a lot of commercials. People get really hyped up about that.
I just used Sushi's last name. Oh, yeah. Wait.
I'll see if it's on our thing. I don't remember. I think I want to say it's like it's someone who owns HBO. Because HBO is I think a part of Hulu.
HBO now.
I think
It's Cartoon Network.
Cartoon Network, we're gonna have to look up because I don't remember off the top of my head. You would think that it would be like Nickelodeon or Disney or something like that. That's kind of what the corporations do. In the corporations, they have other conglomerates that make you think that they're competitions, like Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network. You would think that they're two different advertisements, even though they may be under the same umbrella.
This is my question.
That's his question. It's good.
I see.
Something's wrong.
Comcast. Does anyone know what Comcast is or have ever heard of Comcast?
I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is.
Do you know what it is?
Yeah.
What is it?
It was like, wasn't it something for? Was it Google Comcast? No, that's Comcast. Never mind.
It could be, because here's the thing, is that you may have heard of it in one thing, however, in reality, it's one of the big 6 corporations that own a lot of things. So you like, think about it, you know about Taylor Swift, but you don't know who owns her and who makes all her music, and what if she has to do something for one of the movies that they're creating? I really want to see which one A lot of people know it's 6. That's good. That's good. That's good you guys knew that it was a lot, but think about it. Everything that you see on television, what your parents see, only 6 people own that. Only 6 companies own that, so there's no real diversity.
It's gotta be billions.
60 billion. I did the math this morning because I added it. Yeah. Divided by 6. No, divided by 2. 25 billion. I'll show you some corporations make like 5 billion and some of them make like 100 billion, and you'll see that. Your own choice.
right answer here.
What?
Alright, wait, who answered this one? Who answered this one?
Jacob.
Oh, I did not. I felt like that was the right answer.
Can you name some of them?
No.
Okay, what about this one? Who can name some of these?
What are they?
Raise your hand, raise your hand. I can't do this. Sorry? No. No.
Disney, Comcast. That's it.
Okay. Okay, so he's in the lead. What's he got?
Sony.
Anything else?
Oh yeah, Time Warner.
We named a few.
Universal Studios.
Okay, you and you are the last two. What's up? Facebook? No. Google. Yeah, Google. This is all based off of like our you'll see what we got everything based off of, so it's a little subjective. Even though Google and Facebook are really big corporations, they don't necessarily own television. They don't own all media. They own Instagram, they own yeah, this is about media, more like television based. What are our names? Who can remember our names?
I know it, but it's fine.
Caitlin Ho.
Wait, who?
No.
I remember. Got it. I remember. Yes.
Let's go.
Oh, we don't have enough candy.
I ended up being fourth grade.
Alright, here's how we're gonna do it. Here's how we're gonna do it. No, we're just gonna nose goes it. Should we just nose goes it? Or should we just give, I don't wanna give one person, you wanna just give one person each candy?
Let's do the bag up front.
We'll just leave this bag up front, and then if you guys got our names, we'll give it to you. Who got our names?
Yes, Doria. Really?
Pass it
Wait for
around.
you.
Alright.
No, Pete, pass it around.
Pass it around. Jimmy. Yes. Jacob. Wait. Okay, that's fine. I'll steal it from a bag. Who's Jacob? Who won?
Master Chief.
Which Jacob, guys? Did you win? You got all of them right? Alright. Second? Who got them out of the 15?
That's him.
He already got it back.
I already got it.
Can I have it?
We're gonna give it to Briggs because she let us do that. Yay! Already got the results. All right. Briggs, can I have this? I want a dum-dum. Briggs, can I have this? It's not a lot of candy.
You guys, watch out. It's like a pinata. If you already have it, don't get me on video doing it. Share with people, that's all I
Start
got.
with that.
There will be plenty more. Christmas is on the way. You will have plenty more. You will OD on sugar soda.
Sydney.
What?
Sydney, did you not give it to third place?
No. We're not over. We're not done yet. We're not done yet, Briggs. We still have a presentation. Yeah. Okay.
You're the one walking through it.
All right. Do you want the lights on? So these are the big six corporations. We have National Amusements, and then we have Disney, we have Time Warner, Comcast, News Corp, and Sony. So think about it. Disney makes about 55 million each year. Some of them even are making billions a year. Oh, my average is wrong. One of my questions is wrong. I don't do billion. Anyways, you have these six corporations. What's the one common thing about each of these people? They're all old. They're all old. They're all controlling our media, our television. They're all rich, old, and white. So, should we just skip that? Because this is where we got all of our information from. It's the Big Six, so that's how the Kahoot got made, where we figured out who owned what. And right here also shows a little bit of a representation. So see, Disney owns ESPN. We have NBC, which is also owned by Disney, as well as ABC. So think about that. That's some people watch a lot of shows there. Some people watch a lot of your news there.
So how did this all begin? It began under Ronald Reagan, because once he took office, he began deregulation, not only in media but also in other parts of facets of the American political system. But it was mostly around media, and since then, it's slowly digressed to a point where more and more market shares are appropriated to different companies, and it has led to some backlash recently. But yeah, that's his face.
So in 1982, there were 50 corporations. So in the Kahoot, one or two of you guys answered that there were 52 corporations. Think about it. There were 50 different, old white men at least controlling all our media. So we had all different kinds of opinions. Then as it got deregulated, in 1993, that was only 20 corporations. And now we have 6 corporations that own almost all of our media. Only 6 people are controlling what we hear and say. Only 6 people are pretending that there's competition with Disney and Pixar or something like that, you know what I mean? So they're pretending that there's a competition between each of their conglomerates to make more money when there's only 6 corporations owning it. So Media Synergy is using their own companies to cross-promote products. So we have lots of examples for that, and it's similar to vertical integration because they use movies and television, so they have categories in each media sector that own each bit that will give them advertisements that's basically free for themselves because they own it. So a really good example is Harry Potter. Harry Potter, as I hope some of you guys are Harry Potter fanatics, was produced by Warner Brothers. Then it was distributed by Warner Brothers, and it was promoted by Warner Brothers, and it was exhibited by Warner Brothers. How much money did they put in that? They didn't have to outsource themselves to go to Disney to get their music made or have them promote their big time movie. They just went all the way through themselves because they have something in each sector which allowed them to promote themselves without having to give that much money up.
And another example is Disney, because you guys may notice that Disney and Pixar always cross-promote. Pretty much every Pixar movie can be found in Disneyland's theme parks, and vice versa, they promote their movies. And by outsourcing to themselves, they're able to cut costs and to maximize profits.
Disney and Pixar is really big, and not to mention at Disneyland they have a whole Pixar Fest, which just brings in more money for them for another corporation that they own. Another example would be Once Upon a Time, a very popular television show. The television show was released in 2011. Now this corporation that owns this also owns a book distributing company. So not only did they do that, they created a book that was created 2 years later after the television was made, based off the television, to once increase the revenue, just to use you guys and make it feel like, oh, it already existed by saying it's based off these books, when these books were just made for the television. So polarization and selective exposure go hand in hand. Selective exposure is when you choose to watch something because it's what makes you feel comfortable. Corporations only make profit motives, which is giving them, the viewers, what they want, which is why they have a lot of selective exposure, because we only want to see a certain kind of opinion or a certain kind of view. But that instates polarization. With us only watching one sort of news example, for example, your parents watch a lot of news, maybe in the morning, when you guys are eating dinner, they always watch the same newscast. That's due to selective exposure and polarization. They're never going to understand an outside opinion if they're never looking at it, or if that news station is only giving that opinion because they're only owned by 6 corporations. So that corporation is going to have a certain view, whereas you have to go a little bit further out to go find another one. But that's never going to happen because that's how they've made the system.
Another negative effect of corporate ownership is self-censorship and censorship in general. So what the difference is between the two is certain companies have to relate their news in terms of their profits and about their user base. It's about, you don't really find a user, you create a user. You create your audience. And so how you do that is by putting out only media that they respond well to, that they reflect. So in that sense, news like ABC gives a whole news piece to Disneyland Corporation, but only gives little information about other negative aspects. And self-censorship is seen when journalists have to focus their journalism on only things that reflect their employer's profit motives, I guess. And then Yeah, what it does essentially is curtails relevant information and incentivizes profit. An example is Malaysia Airlines flight that went missing like 2 years ago, 317. And so for a whole month, CNN just covered that. And although it was only relevant for probably 1 week, they did it because the user kept on responding well to it.
Like, for example, for like censorship, when Shrek came out, that was one of the first big animations, which is by DreamWorks, a competitor corporation. ABC did no news coverage on it. They did very little news coverage on it because it would advertise their competitor in their movies instead of their own Disney movies. So because of that, they're trying not to advertise, and they're also preventing some news, because having a big animation is a big step in technology as well.
And also, there's really no new opinions, because with such big companies controlling such a big portion of the market, it's really hard for smaller companies to compete. And pretty much capitalism is founded on the competition, because what competition does is it benefits the consumer. But companies trying to compete with each other, it's the user who really profits. They get better products, cheaper prices, and they get more innovation. So like, I got really catfished when I was younger, because I thought all these different cereal companies were owned by all these different different cereal companies, but no, they're all owned by the same company. And then I just saw like the same advertisement over and over for the same company, essentially. And so with more and more mergers and expansions, these companies are able to expand on and pretty much like create this unfair advantage over its competition, with smaller companies not even being able to compete.
And then, for example, we have Yelp, which we saw in a 60-minute documentary. And so what they... Did we take up your entire tutorial? I'm so sorry. Just won't get there.